your closest friend passed away, but suddenly one day, his family brought you a photo of him before his death and wanted you to keep a memorial. Faced with this photo, would you accept it gladly or decline it politely? 2020, I married in Shandong and started a new life. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, several years passed, but I couldn't find time to go back to my mother's house to visit my relatives. During that time, I don't know what happened, but I missed home very much, especially for my elderly grandfather. At that time, the child was already 2 years old, and it was the age when I could go out with me. So just last winter, I decided to take the child back to my mother's house to visit my grandfather. When I got home, I unexpectedly found a group photo in the living room, which showed my grandfather eating with someone. The photo was taken in a small restaurant, and the light in the photo was very dim. Under normal circumstances, people would not take pictures in this environment, and it looked more like they were taken casually when they were not paying attention. In the photo, my grandfather and the other person were kept at a very long distance, and it was obvious that they were not very close. Anyway, the whole photo will give people a very strange feeling, and it makes people feel very uncomfortable after reading it, because my grandparents usually like to develop photos of them when they travel, and then hang them on the wall of the living room. Other photos look normal, but this photo is particularly strange. Although it made me a little confused, I didn't think much about it at that time. After taking a look, I continued to be busy looking after the children. The next day, my aunt came, and as soon as she entered the door, she began to accuse my grandfather of hanging the dead man's photo on the wall again. How unlucky. So I quickly put that photo away. He was talking about the photo I looked very uncomfortable with yesterday. At this point, my grandfather's stubbornness also came up, and he said loudly, "That's a photo of Heg, my old friend for many years. What's wrong with me putting the photo in the living room?" At this time, the atmosphere at home suddenly became a little tense. I hurried forward to make a round, and then pulled my aunt into my room. My aunt couldn't say anything more, so she could only helplessly enter the house with me. After entering the house, I learned the origin of this photo from my aunt. It turned out that this photo was taken a few years ago when Grandpa He specially invited my grandparents to visit his city. At that time, my grandparents also liked to travel, so they happily accepted the invitation. The photo was taken by Grandpa He when he invited my grandpa to dinner, and the grandpa smiled very happily in the picture. However, Grandpa He passed away not long ago. One day, Grandpa He's son came to our house from their city and gave this photo to my grandpa. After Grandpa accepted it, he put the photo in the frame and hung it in the most conspicuous position in the living room. Since I was a child, I often heard Grandpa He talk about Grandpa He. They were old comrades in arms for many years, and Grandpa and Grandma often traveled with Grandpa He and Grandma, and their relationship was very deep. However, Grandpa He's children and my grandpa didn't have much contact, and when Grandpa He's son sent this photo all the way, our whole family felt a little different and puzzled. After my aunt told me this, I thought Grandpa's words made sense, so I persuaded my aunt again. After everyone laughed, they didn't take it to heart and gradually forgot about it. However, a few days later, strange things began to happen. That night, after putting the baby to sleep as usual, I went to rest early. But I had a strange dream. Mom was in the dream. Mom, I didn't realize I was dreaming. Mom just thought it was an ordinary day. I was taking care of the children and sorting out the housework as usual when I suddenly heard someone knocking on the door. When I went to the door and was about to open the door, my grandfather suddenly stopped me and shouted at the door, "Brother He, you are dead. You shouldn't come here again, and you are not welcome here. Leave quickly." After Grandpa said it 2 or 3 times in a row, the knocking on the door gradually disappeared. Grandpa turned to me and said, "It's all right, you go do your thing." At this time, I was relieved and went back to looking after the child. In my dream, another day seemed to have passed, and on the second night, there was another familiar knock on the door. I just wanted to open the door, but my heart suddenly tightened. Could it be that this knock on the door was the same as yesterday, and it wasn't someone knocking? I thought of this, and then subconsciously stepped aside, and after glancing at my grandfather walked over tacitly and said loudly to the door, "Brother He, don't come again. You don't belong to this world anymore. Hurry up and leave." But this time the thing refused to leave, and my grandfather repeatedly persuaded him, but the other party was unmoved. I stood beside my grandfather nervously and waited, worried that if this thing broke in, I was afraid that my grandfather would not be able to handle it alone. Just then, my son suddenly started crying in the room, and I hurriedly turned around and walked to the room, but just as I entered the room, I vaguely heard my grandfather whisper, "Well, this time I will make an exception to let you come in and sit for a while, but only for a while, and then leave quickly." Hearing this, I was shocked, and then immediately picked up my son and rushed back to the living room. Just as I returned to the living room, I was completely frightened by the scene in front of me. I saw an old man standing in front of my grandfather, and this old man looked exactly like the person in the photo. I was so scared that I woke up from my dream, sweat soaking through my clothes. When I looked at the time, it was exactly 2 o'clock in the morning. After that, I could no longer sleep, so I had to sit in bed until dawn. The next day, I told my grandparents and aunt about it, and my aunt said that the family must have been unkind when they sent the photo. My aunt guessed that their family must have gone to someone to calculate, or there must be some kind of attention. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent a picture of a dead person for no reason. In fact, on the day they sent the photo, my aunt reminded my grandfather, but my grandfather never believed in anything in his life, so he didn't take my aunt's words to heart at all, and hung the photo of the dead man in the living room. But unexpectedly, this strange thing happened to me in the end. Until now, I still can't figure out why the family sent the photos of their lost loved ones to someone else's house. Was it an inadvertent act, or was there some unknown secret hidden behind it? This question has been haunting me and puzzling me. If you have any friends who know the inside story, please help to solve your doubts in the comment area. Maybe your explanation can help me put aside my doubts and find a trace of inner peace.